Okay, we've got Carl Edwards in here, and Carl is the fastest in practice, I believe, out there in the first Sprint Cup Series practice today. He drives the number 19 Aris surfboard Toyota for Joe Gibbs Racing. And Carl, we're kind of at the midpoint of the season. The racing's been really good. People seem to be very excited coming out of Daytona and looking forward towards the second half of the season. A lot of buzz and anticipation. Maybe just talk about, how you think things have gone from your perspective on the racetrack, and maybe how you think that's going to translate over here at Kentucky Speedway this weekend.
Well, first of all, I think the first half of the season for me it's been more fun than I've had in a long time. We've had some really close finishes, hard races. There's been a lot more passing, and I'm having a blast with my new crew chief, Dave Rogers. We got along really well, and so. Dave said it in his quote leading into this race. I mean, this is a big unknown with the new surface, the tire, the package, all that stuff, and that's the kind of racing that is fun to go do. We don't know what to expect. We didn't get a lot of time in race trim. We scuffed some tires, so we'll practice tomorrow, try to learn all we can, and try to get to victory lane here. This place for me is really special. Site of my first NASCAR win in that '99 truck in 2003. That was a really special night for me, and I've always really enjoyed coming here, so just try to go put the surfboard colors in victory lane. The surfboard is a modem, which is much easier for me to operate than a real surfboard, which I tried last week in Daytona. That's a lot like drowning for me. So, so got surfboard colors on it, but yeah, I can't do any real surfing. What else do you guys want to know?
Questions for Carl? Raise your hand. Mark, do you have one? Mark Story's got one right here. Let's start with him if we could, please.
Carl, Mark Story from the Lexington Herald Leader. What are your impressions of the track? How is it different? What do you expect Saturday night?
It's a beautiful surface. I mean, it's really smooth. The best part about it that I can tell so far is that turns 1 and 2 are much different than 3 and 4. So that, a lot of times with these new surfaces, it's very difficult to pass. Everyone's locked down in one groove. But I slipped up a couple times in turn 3 and washed up the racetrack to a spot I didn't want to be. I saw a lot of people having trouble there, and that's the kind of thing that's going to make the race good. You got to have things like that. You got to have difficult parts of the racetrack, and turn 3 is very difficult. So I think that's going to be good.
Go ahead to Tucker.
Tucker White, SpeedwayMedia.com. Carl, after this one practice session today, how do you think the low downforce package will affect the race on Saturday?
It's really hard to tell. We talked a little bit about this at Daytona. The low downforce package, if you go from where we were a year ago to where we are now with what we call the 2016 package, it's been a marked improvement. I mean, everything's been better. We've been able to race closer. There's more passing. So I believe this lower downforce package is another step in the right direction. It's tough to be able to determine that at Michigan or here at Kentucky with new surface. It's really hard to get a grasp of how that package would work at a place like Texas or maybe Phoenix or Homestead. But I really believe we're going the right direction with it.
Would it be of your interest to you to see this used maybe one more time, particularly at a track with maybe less grip, like say Darlington?
Yeah. I think it's a great question. I think it's been brought up, and it has. The biggest thing is that the drivers, the drivers, NASCAR, the team owners all have to agree. Hey, we feel okay trying this here, and I think everyone felt like these tracks that we're trying it at, Michigan and Kentucky were tracks everyone was okay with. The only worry, and I think everyone, drivers, NASCAR, everybody worries that it's going to be kind of hard to determine how it would work at a place like Darlington or Texas or Homestead or somewhere with a little bit different grip level. But I mean, heck, we're moving in the right direction. We're trying these things that really were just on all of our wish lists a couple years ago. I mean, if you go out there and look at the size of that spoiler and the splitter, I mean, this is the stuff we were all as a group begging for, and I just really appreciate NASCAR doing it. I think it's only going to get better.
Other questions for Carl? Front row here, Matt.
Nice of you to show up, Lee. That's good. Thank you.
We'll go Matt, and then we'll go to Lee, and then to Gary.
She gets to just walk in and get right
Yeah,
away.
why not?
You should make her wait. The
Cardinals were
All right.
playing. Go ahead.
Matt Weaver, Racer.com. Two questions for you. Kind of on a similar note to what you were just talking about. I was talking to another driver last weekend, and he said that we get to a point where if we keep taking it off, we're going to take too much downforce off these cars. And he said if you look at the race at Michigan, it was actually too much, and the cars were too out of control. You guys couldn't pass. I'm curious what your take is on that, given what you just said.
I don't agree with that at all. I think Michigan was hard to drive for a couple of reasons. But if you really look at it, I mean, this, and everybody has an opinion, but we were going extremely fast still in the middle of the corner there. It's a very narrow groove. Cars still punch a great big hole in the air. And we still have literally a ton of downforce. I mean, really a ton of a lot. I don't know if it's exactly a ton, but it's a lot. So, in my opinion, you have to keep going. I think Michigan was a case of, hey, they were harder to drive because there was less downforce, but it didn't make them. I don't think that you can say, hey, there you go, we've got the magic number. I still subscribe to the, hey, less downforce, the racing's been better, everything's been better, we should do more. And some tracks are going to be harder to drive than others.
And this direction started here last year, and Brad was in here earlier today talking about the unprecedented level of collaboration that started at Kentucky, went to Darlington. When you look back on this race last year, is that really a turning point, you think, in the history of NASCAR?
I think it's a really big deal. And if you go back and watch the race, just watch the interviews, everyone's demeanor, even guys that weren't in it for the win, guys that, everybody got out and said, man, that was fun. And NASCAR did a really great job of responding to that, implementing a lot of that stuff for this season. And I mean, after some of these races, it's got a whole different feel to it. It really has been a good time. There've been some great races, and I would agree with Brad. The collaboration's amazing. It's made all of us have to kind of stop and realize, hey, if we've got a gripe or something, we can go talk to Steve O'Donnell. We can talk to a council member, and it gets heard. I think. And at the end of the day, the fans are the ones that benefit. I mean, this is pretty cool.
I suppose we'll go to Lee.
That's big of you, KT.
Unless you got something else you need to go do and come back, we could wait. Or
I'm here just for you, Carl.
All right.
Can you talk a little bit about, you ran 51 laps more than anybody else out there.
I'm sorry, I did what?
You ran 51 laps today more than anyone else. What specifically do you look for when you're trying to set up your car for a new repave and a new reconfiguration like that? What are you guys concentrating on throughout the course of this exercise?
So for us, we scuffed a bunch of tires. That's what we did. And really, but while we're doing that, I'm just looking at, hey, what are the little nuances of the track? Where are the bumps? Where is the grip level different? Exactly where's the speed? This track is difficult. I don't know if it was before you came in or not, but we were talking about the difference between turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. It's a bigger difference than any of the mile and a halves we go to. I mean, it's huge. So determining how you're going to balance the car and where to be aggressive and how loose you need to be here or there. I mean, it's kind of hard to figure that out, but that's what I was working on.
And to kind of follow up on the earlier questions, Keselowski also said that he would be amenable to perhaps, even though this is supposed to be the last, view that we get of the 2017 package, he'd be amenable to seeing perhaps something change at Michigan if you thought that you guys had hit on something, wanted to go further on something, that Michigan might be the ideal place to do it before the chase begins. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm up for anything. To me, and let's be clear here, I have no. If you look at how well we're running as a group, making changes now, it doesn't. There's no guarantee it's going to benefit us. So I don't have any incentive competitively right now to say, hey, I know we can do better if we do this. But I'm all for trying less and less downforce. Any amount of any aero dependency we can take away from the cars, I'm fine trying it at any time. And But really, I think it's a balance, and I've talked to Steve O'Donnell and those guys a little bit. They're just balancing it with the teams, making sure everybody's okay with trying these things at different places. But yeah, I mean, you guys know where I stand on it. I'm always for it.
Go ahead, Gary.
Gary Graves, AP. Just kind of following up on some of the questions about adapting to the track. Brad was talking earlier about how he kind of misses the bumps. When you think back on all those other races with the bumps, and now it's smoother, do you kind of miss it, or is it just one of those things like you said, just kind of trying to figure out where the bumps are?
Well, yeah, a track has to have character, and but I also understand it has to be balanced with keeping the surface safe. And you know, sometimes the pavement just gets old, and I guess it has to be replaced. But you know, I think the most important thing to remember is, regardless of how tough these repaves are, this track in particular has that difference between turns 3 and turns 1 and 2. I mean, turn 3 is so flat and really pretty treacherous that even if we're locked down, having trouble gaining an advantage through 1 and 2, somebody's going to slip up in 3. So what it lacks in bumps now, it still retains in character, and I think that's a good thing.
Got a question right over here. Go ahead.
Jeremy Rao, Fox 19 in Cincinnati. Carl, the one thing I wanted to ask you is there's been so much carryover at this track as far as the Cup races and champions go, with obviously Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski. Do you think that the renovated track will change things up this year? Do you expect that?
I guess I hadn't thought of it in terms of the surface was kind of similar to Homestead, I guess, and now it is different. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it doesn't feel like much carries over at all anymore in the sport because things evolve so quickly. I don't know. I think to me it's a whole new track with this surface. It's going to stand alone for a little while.
Let's go to Nate.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Carl, going back to last year, there was a lot of consternation going in the race about the tire and about how it was the wrong tire, so to speak, and it seems like there's been a little bit of that concern going into this year with Goodyear making the last-minute change. Any reason to think that maybe wrong will be right again the way it was last year?
Man. I subscribe to a pretty simple philosophy. It's that these cars aren't supposed to be easy to drive. They're not supposed to handle well. And the harder they are to drive and the harder it is to manage everything, the better race you see. And so, to me, as long as the tire's safe, which, for me this year, Goodyear's done a really good job of making safe tires. As long as they're safe, I don't care what they bring. Just doesn't matter to me.
Other questions for Carl? Let's go back to Lee. Excuse me.
I know you and a bunch of guys were also scuffing tires, but can you talk about how the feel was when you take away that kind of mechanical grip with a tire that is that hard? What was the sensation like in the seat? Because some guys felt really loose going into the corners, and I think you would give a pretty even keel description as far as the package that Goodyear has.
So what I feel in these tires is the same thing I feel a lot of times with a very smooth, high grip racetrack like we have here, and that's you slide the car, and the window you get to slide in is pretty small. You get this little bit of area where it's like, okay, I can slide around, I'm a little loose, and if you go past that, the tires start to shake and shatter and bounce, and it gets really hairy at that point. So that's really the tough part for us as drivers at these repaves. It's how hard do you go, how aggressive can you be without stepping over, shattering the tires, and hitting the guy next to you, or sliding up into the marbles. So that's what I feel. Man, I don't know. It's been so long since I've raced on dirt, but I think it's the opposite. I feel like the guys that are really good at these type of tires are the guys that have, the younger guys who spent a lot of time in the Xfinity Series or the Truck Series lately, where they're really on edge, really fast to the center of the corner. For me, I just feel a little more comfortable at a track like in Atlanta or Homestead, where you get a bigger window to slide the car. The car can get a few degrees out, and you can work in that area, but I don't know. We run pretty well at these. I'd say the biggest thing with a track like this, to put it simply, is your car is more important. It's much more important you get that car perfect. You got a bunch of downforce. You got everything aimed the right direction, and that's where the speed comes from. You can't really hang it out as much and make something happen.
Any additional questions for Carl? Carl, thanks for coming in. Certainly a lot of luck to you this weekend.
All right. Thank you guys very much.